So this is episode 14 of Prolog is Amazing. And I was having a little dilemma about, first of all, Prolog doesn't have types, right? Static types that OCaml and Haskell have. And also that Prolog doesn't have a module system like OCaml has, like a module level language that allows you to combine modules and interfaces and implementations in various different ways. And so, and then I was also researching things like the Coq theorem prover, which is written in OCaml. It has, you write code in it in the Galena language, and it has a module system similar to OCaml. So I was thinking like maybe is Coq a better system than Prolog or some other theorem prover, right? But then I found an implement. So then I started thinking, well, why not? And I think I found a blog post or somehow I came across the idea, well, why not implement your type checker and your module system in Prolog itself, right? So there's things to be said about this. So first, Prolog, SWI Prolog does have, somebody wrote a library, some bunch of people, that does the Hindley-Milner type system, overlays it on top as a library is available, so you can have Haskell and OCaml type kind of types in SWI Prolog. And maybe I was thinking, it's like, maybe you can just develop your own type checker in Prolog. And a lot of, there was some kind of commentary, there's a comment somewhere saying, well, every type checker is a poorly implemented Prolog, right? So what they're saying is eventually type checkers of functional languages end up being basically a Prolog system overlaid on top of the language that does the type checking. So maybe Prolog is the language to write type checkers in, and maybe then you could just write a type checker that type checks your Prolog code, and that's the best way to do it anyway. Now, so that comment, actually, there's a line of comments like that where it started with Philip Greenspun, who wrote Philip and Alex's Guide to Web Publishing, which is how I got introduced to programming 25 years ago, where he made a comment, in the 90s, like every sufficiently complicated C program or C++ program is a poorly implemented, bug-ridden, slow version of Common Lisp, right? His point was that you should just program in Common Lisp, your application. Like big C++ programs are like, they're just bad, right? Like you could, like the point is that it's like you're re-implementing concepts so that are already present in Common Lisp in various different ways to actually end up trying to create your application. And then there's another comment later on that came that's like, well, every sufficiently complicated Common Lisp program is just a poorly implemented, bug-ridden, slow, undocumented version of Prolog, right? It's like, if you start developing Common Lisp programs sufficiently, then you end up reinventing concepts that Prolog already has, right? But it's probably not all true, and there's reasons to use C++ and there's reasons to use Common Lisp over Prolog. But anyway, so that's the line of comments. Now, if you do implement your type checker on top of Prolog, it's still going to be slow. So Prolog is still going to be much slower than, for example, Mercury Prolog. It's like these people have been developing a type checker for Prolog since the early 90s, and they've created a fast version of Prolog that is 30 times faster, I think, than SWI Prolog, maybe. Or I don't know, some fast number. So maybe I should go directly to Mercury Prolog, right? But then there's also theorem provers, interactive theorem provers like Coq, where maybe why are you doing that even? It's like they have all that already, and maybe you should do it in that. Now, and maybe they're fast as well. And so now the reason I want to stick to Prolog still and do all and not use something like Coq is because it's like you have to learn all of that, and then maybe like people don't tend to program full programs in a theorem prover because it's too hard, right? It requires much more work than just coding. For example, there's a lot of people still coding in OCaml and Haskell and not going to a full-blown theorem prover because the full like it's faster to develop like lots of code than going to a full-blown theorem prover. So that's a way where maybe using Prolog, sticking to Prolog is still better than going to, even though Prolog is a kind of theorem prover. And also, I was thinking that, well, first of all, speed doesn't really matter to me, not right now anyway. Also, maybe if I stick to Prolog and then just start developing my own type checker from scratch, maybe it will be useful to me. Like in a sense, I was thinking it's like, well, a type checker is basically safety checking your code, and maybe there's different directions to go in on that front. And like it's basically Prolog's main feature is that you can, according to Marcus Triska, is Prolog's best feature still to why you should maybe use Prolog is because the source code is in the database of Prolog. The source code is just a bunch of facts that you can manipulate at will in Prolog, and so building a type checker is kind of trivial in Prolog over Prolog code, right? Or whatever kind of type checks you want, and then maybe, and then in addition to, well, maybe I can extend the language in ways that make my code also faster to write, like whatever I'm doing, right? Like so, and then maybe I can implement my own module system like OCaml's, but maybe in my own version, maybe it will be even better or whatever. It will work according to what I want if I just stick to Prolog, right? So maybe it's like, it might be that doing a type checker and a module system in Prolog is kind of trivial, maybe. Like it would be very easy to do anyway, so then I don't have to switch over to OCaml or something, right? And also, maybe even extending the syntax of Prolog. Maybe it's like sometimes, and people do that. It's like, you want functional syntax, right? And maybe it's easy to do, and there are already packages that do it in S2 by Prolog. Maybe you want to do it yourself, and maybe get your syntax to where you like it. So it's almost like if you go to OCaml, then you have to do everything according to the way the language OCaml designers designed. Whereas if you do Prolog, you can just make it up as you go along, and it's not too hard to do. It won't be as fast as the OCaml code, but maybe if that doesn't matter, maybe by just like still hacking around, creating your own module system and creating your own type checking, overlaying Prolog would be trivial, and then you also get the benefits of the Prolog, like meta interpretation at will and whatever that you need. So maybe you're more productive programmer than if you went to OCaml. So maybe in net result is still that you're better off in Prolog.